So hello everyone, welcome to our webinar session today on how to generate qualified clients for your outsourcing business. So thank you for spending your time to learn with us wherever you may be. And this webinar is brought to you by Payoneer and Greenhouse. So my name is Philip. I'll be your host for today. Just a brief introduction of Payoneer. So Payoneer is a NASDAQ listed payment platform for digital commerce. So we were founded back in 2005 and we serve close to 5 million customers and help streamline global commerce for millions of small businesses, marketplaces, and enterprises from 200 over countries. So the key thing that differentiates us from the other payment providers is really our ability to support both your payables and receivables. And the goal is really to reduce friction that is involved in sending and receiving international payments. So I'm leading the partnerships activities in the Southeast Asia region for Payoneer, and I'm currently based in Singapore. So our partnership team actually develops strategies and identifies opportunities across the region for collaboration within the payment ecosystem. So today, at the end of the session, we will have a Q&A/discussion, but you can already start sending in your questions using the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen. And towards the end, we will try to address as many of them as possible. So we are very happy to have with us today Viktor from Greenhouse, and he will be sharing with us on how to communicate your business unique value proposition, easy to use tools as a small business, and also how to leverage content as an acquisition channel. So Viktor is the COO of Greenhouse, and they are a technology platform that help startups and small businesses find market entry services in Asia with minimized risk, time, and cost. So as the COO, Viktor looks after the day-to-day management and operations with emphasis on business development and product growth. So Viktor, thank you for joining us today. I'll pass on the floor to you.
Sure. Thank you, Philip. And hi, everyone. I appreciate you taking your Wednesday afternoon, I guess, if you're based in Asia, to attend today's webinar. So do my best to share some of our, just a moment, let me just share the presentation. Yeah. Cool. So I hope you can see my screen. So I prepared a quick presentation, and then as Philip mentioned, we're going to have a Q&A session where we're going to have a chat around. Hopefully, you know what you have learned and what is not clear. We're going to do our best to clarify and make it easy for you to understand. So a bit about myself. As Philip mentioned, I look after business development at Greenhouse. In a startup, when you're the CEO, you essentially do a bit of everything, whatever is necessary. My background is mainly in startups. I was born in Bulgaria and I spent about 19 years there. Afterwards, I moved to Denmark for studies. I spent about 7 years in Denmark, and then I moved to Southeast Asia. I lived in Malaysia, Indonesia, and currently I'm based in Singapore. And in the past 7 years, I've been running startups, either as a head of marketing or as a COO across the region. So yeah, I'll give you a very startup perspective of how SMEs can drive more revenues. And a bit about us. So we help startups in particular to grow revenues across the markets. We have helped more than 200 startups by now. I have to update the deck. We were just counting 2 days ago. So about 200 clients have successfully entered new markets across Asia Pacific thanks to our help. And our model is a marketplace model, meaning, rather than us offering these services in-house, we connect you with service providers on the ground, either in the Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, across quite a few markets in Asia Pacific. And most recently, we launched also markets in Europe and North America. So that's a bit about us. We have more than 200 partners. All of them are vetted, meaning we interview them, we do a bit of due diligence. Sometimes we talk to their clients, sometimes we talk to, government bodies like chambers of commerce to understand whether these companies are doing a good job and get endorsements from them in that sense. So yeah, we do our best to find the most reliable service providers across a variety of markets, because the process of going into a new territory is quite challenging, even in developed markets. there's culture differences, language barriers, and of course, it's just the customer behavior is very, very different. So we do our best to connect you with the right partners. We offer two verticals of services. On the one side, we offer in-market sales services, meaning, lead generation, appointment setting, in-market representation, services that help you land first deals in new markets. And on the other side, we have incorporation services. So opening a bank account or, incorporating the business, work permits, and all that. So if you need any of these services, we can connect you with the right partner on the ground to get that done. We are blessed with a very high NPS. NPS stands for Net Promoter Score, and it's the way we measure the satisfaction of our clients. Every time we help someone, we ask them, how likely are they to recommend Greenhouse to their friends or colleagues. And, everyone is very happy with our service. As you can see, there is a lot of testimonials. We have also been awarded as the most customer-centric startup by Singapore Business Awards in 2021. So we put a lot of efforts to make sure our clients and partners are happy of working with us. We work with companies all over the world. Some of them are, very small startups. Some of them are large companies like TMF. TMF is one of the largest corporate service providers in the world, Vistra as well. And some of them are very small domestic companies, like, for example, Dharma Corp in Indonesia. So we try to provide good options for every potential customer so that they can, decide themselves which one they want to work with. That's about our model. I'm happy to answer more questions. You can drop us an email, or during today's webinar itself, we can have a chat about that. But the objective here is for me to really give you my perspective on what we have learned as a best practice on generating qualified leads. Because being a marketplace model, what we do is that we generate qualified leads for 200 companies around the world, right? And for us to capture revenues, we need to do it better than all of them. If we did not do it better, or if we did not have unique channels that we are able to monetize, we wouldn't be in business, right? So we put a lot of efforts, and we spend a lot of time thinking on what would work, and also experimenting with some of these ideas. So I'm just going to share a bit about that. So whenever you start thinking about marketing and how you're gonna acquire new customers, I have in my career, I have seen two approaches. And I used to be a head of marketing for a fast-growing startup that raised a few $1 million. So the approaches that I see as most common are, on the one side, you have the Bullseye framework, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And on the other side, we have become world-class in one thing. So become world-class in one thing, it means essentially pick a channel that you feel you're very confident in, you understand, you have done in the past, you know how to do it well, being partnerships or SEO or content marketing, or perhaps SEM, like whatever it is, right? Just double down on what you know how to do and just become really good at it so that you have competitive advantage. And on the other side, we have the Boosas framework, which is a very analytical approach. So under the Boosas framework, it's actually popularized by a book called Traction. The book is written by the guy that started a search engine called DuckDuckGo. I highly recommend you to read the book. It's awesome. It has a lot of examples, and it definitely helped me in my first job as a head of marketing. But essentially what the framework argues is that, there is roughly about 19, 20 channels out there, right? Because, there are just that many marketing channels that you can use. So what you need to do is that you need to map all these channels, and then you need to start testing them on a budget. Or maybe not all of them, but as many as you can. So you design different experiments for each channel, whether that's social ads, meaning ads on Facebook or Instagram, or whether that's search engine marketing, so designing some AdWords, or whether that's content marketing and writing your blog, or whatever it is, right? So mapping all these channels, designing inexpensive experiments, and start testing out, right? When I speak of inexpensive experiments, that of course is subjective, and every business has different ability to pay. But what I think typically is sufficient budget for most channels is at least $500 per channel, and then using that budget to really understand whether this channel is going to work for you. If you're better resourced, you can even hire marketing agencies and you just give them 1 or 2 channels and say, okay, low budget, go test it out. If you're not that resourced, you need to do it in-house, which is a bit harder, and you need to have a very generalist kind of person in the team that can do that. We have done it at Greenhouse when we started, where we mapped all the channels and we started, one by one testing them with inexpensive experiments. Then, over time, you start seeing what's probable to work. So you start noticing that, let's say 4 or 5, or maybe 2 or 3 channels start actually bringing some results, but it's still not clear which channel is the best fit for you, right? So then what you need to do is that then you deploy more capital towards these 4 or 5 channels or 2 channels, whatever the number is, and you really test them inside out. By doing that, you're able to really understand which is the channel or the 2 channels that are really good for you, given the expertise that you have as a team, given where you're based, what's your business, what's the dynamic of your business model, because some channels are better fit for some businesses and other not that good fit, right? So that's the Boosas framework. It's essentially 3-step framework: map everything, test it out, then narrow down and double down. So I think that's something that has helped me a lot, and there is a lot written on the internet about this, so you can definitely Google it and read it. I have written as own topic, and I can share some of my articles later if you're interested. Whereas on the other side, becoming world-class in one thing is just like really reflecting on what has worked for you in the past and what kind of unique skills do you have. Because if you spend your life, writing a blog, and now you run your own business, well, chances are, writing and content marketing is your channel, right? It doesn't make sense for you to go do partnerships because maybe you don't have that experience. So this is all about, understanding what you're really good at and focusing on that. So this is a bit about the difference between, the Boosas framework and becoming world-class in one thing. Then another thing you need to consider as you're testing different channels is that there are 2 types of channels. You have push channels and pull channels. A push channel is a channel that, you don't necessarily search for that, but it pushes you in your face. So for example, you go to Facebook and, and someone targets you with headphones. Right? Let's say that, they're trying to sell you AirPods. You didn't go to Facebook to buy fucking AirPods. Like, you don't care about that. You're on Facebook to talk to friends, see what's going on. But, you see a commercial or an ad of AirPods and you're like, what? Maybe I want AirPods. Maybe the ad was so well designed, the copy was really good that you decide to buy. So that's an example of a push channel, right? You don't go search for it and it comes in your face. And, then you decide whether you want to buy that product, consume that product or not. Other examples would be, social media in general. Like we don't go on social media to search for any particular thing. We just, go there to see what's going to come out, of different posts. So it's a bit serendipitous in that sense. Email marketing, again, very often you get an email you didn't expect, but again, maybe you see something in that email that you like and you end up consuming the product. And there is, like, of course, outbound, making calls. Like, this is essentially sales, direct sales. So that again is a very pushy approach, TV and radio, and all kinds of offline, like billboards, magazines, and things like that. On the other side, you have pull channels. So the pull channels is when you're actively searching for something, right? And some products are better designed for search versus other. Like, again, going back to, some, let's say, t-shirts, right? Chances are that if you're looking for a t-shirt, you may not necessarily search for that t-shirt on Google. But, if you see a very cool design t-shirt as a push channel, you may consume that. So, this kind of merchandise could be a better fit for push channels, or things that are very cool, like, a lot of Kickstarter campaigns, right? These channels are designed so that they appeal to you, no matter whether you need it or not. Whereas on the other side, you have the pull channels. I go on Google to search for a particular thing. Let's say that I need an accountant, right? I would go to Google and I would say accountants in whatever market I am or whatever city I am, right? So I have an intent. And because I have an intent, like, the objective of the business is to just design content and, landing pages around that. So channels that make sense from pull perspective are SEM, which stands for search engine marketing. So this is paid advertisement on Google or Bing or, whatever browser, whatever search engine you're using. Then you have SEO, which is search engine optimization, which is the process of, optimizing your content and website and online presence so that it's discoverable online. Then content marketing. This is, longer form of blogs, or even making videos, podcasts, whatever it is that people might be searching for. And YouTube. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. So because of that, I think these are the pull channels and these are the push. So consider what kind of product you're selling and consider what is the best fit for you, right? Like if you're, for example, lawyer or accountant, if you push accounting services on Facebook in my face, I doubt I would just be like, what? I actually need accounting. It's going to be very rare for me to purchase that. But, whenever I need accounting, I'll most probably go to Google and search for someone, or go to Greenhouse, because Greenhouse has a lot of accountants on our supply side. So we can definitely connect you with the best ones in Southeast Asia. Then just to go a bit deeper on content, because I think that's a topic that not many people understand unless they come from this domain. So as it comes to content, there are two approaches in my experience. You have focus on quantity and then focus on quality. When you focus on quantity, that's something, for example, that Greenhouse does. Because we service 200 partners across 30 countries. So what happens is that, we have a landing page for every service and for every country. So you would have lead generation Indonesia, lead generation Singapore, right? And all these pages are optimized, but they're not amazing, right? Because it's very hard for me to prepare the most beautiful 500 landing pages, right? So what happens is that in marketplace models, typically you see a lot of different landing pages that are specifically optimized for a particular product, particular market, right? So this is the quantity approach where you focus on a lot, right? And over time, as these pages are optimized and well maintained, you start ranking high and you drive more traffic, right? So good companies that do that is Zapier and Temstack. If you're familiar with Zapier, Zapier is essentially an integration tool that allows different software to communicate and work together with each other, even if they're not integrated. So it's like the glue between different, you can think of it as glue between different software. And Zapier, designs a lot of different landing pages to show you what is possible, like connect, for example, Zoom with Slack, or connect Slack with Gmail, right? So these are millions of combinations they're able to do, and each of them has a landing page. So there is a lot of quantity approach, and what they do is that they have built algorithms that generate these pages, right? That requires a lot of engineering, and it's a lot harder. So I wouldn't recommend the quantity approach to smaller brands, but then on the other side, you have the quality, right? So rather than having a lot of landing pages and a lot of different things going on, just focus on a few things and get them done very well, right? So here, it's like you most probably have 4 or 5 pages on your website and just focusing on getting these pages right. And you can do this through A/B tests, right? A/B test is, when you essentially split the traffic so that you can test different visuals or different size of different elements, or, the color of your button, whatever, right? You can test different things to see what works, what doesn't work. And the base of that, you make incremental improvements until your website is as good as it can be. And then, of course, long articles. And when I speak of long articles, I mean more than 1,800 words. And here, when you write long articles, you don't need to write just for the sake of writing. What you need to do is that you need to provide real value. Like, you need to go really deep and share everything you know. Because if you're running a business, and going back to the example of being an accountant, if you're an accountant, chances are you know a lot more than me about accounting. So if you're able to really share everything you know across several different articles, where you just break down how different people consume your services, what's important to pay attention to, and you just provide as much value as you can in a long-term format, chances are people are going to discover, appreciate, and share that content, which is going to drive more revenue. I think good examples of that are Demand Curve and Reforge. You can go check them out. These are both. So Demand Curve is a marketing agency based out of the States, and Reforge is a cohort-based education platform. Both of them do amazing content. You can just read, and it feels like, whenever I read their content, I just take so many notes, because, they go so deep on different topics and they share everything they know. They don't hide anything. And because of that, they have huge communities of people that love their content, keep on coming back and share it the same way I'm sharing right now with you. So I think, what you need to remember above all is that you need to focus on the customer and deliver as much value as possible. I think a lot of smaller businesses tend to try to hide things because they're afraid that people are just going to read it and go to it on their own. And while that's true, and sometimes it does happen that, customers would get all the necessary value and they go get, do whatever they need on their own. In fact, that's good for you because these customers are super price sensitive and they're not the best, right? So it's good that you're eliminating them. I'm very big fan of value-driven sales and marketing, where we give as much as we can, and we believe that this is gonna pay back, rather than trying to hide things from our customers. A few other channels that I have seen to be working very well and that are quite unique and not as trendy in Southeast Asia, at least in the startup world, are the ones on the screen. So starting with community-driven go-to-market. I see more and more businesses, what they do is that, you build a reputation in your field, you get quite popular, then you build a small community around that. So, you start, you make a group on Facebook, or you make a group on WhatsApp, or you make a group on Slack, or whatever. And, and you build a community, you share a lot of value, people like you, people trust you. And over time, that community grows and becomes much bigger. So, at some point, as the community is big enough, you're like, okay, now I'm ready to start a business because now I have this massive community that trusts me, understands me, and respects me, right? So then, your acquisition cost is very low because you could build a community. It's not easy, but I see more and more companies doing that. I think it's actually fascinating to observe it, and it's one thing that we should have done with Greenhouse as well. And unfortunately, we missed on that. Another good channel, or I wouldn't call it channel, but approach, is building public. Building public is, when you go to LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever social media, or Facebook, whatever social media you use, and you're like, what? I'm opening a business that's going to be focused on, let's say, lead generation. And I'm going to share every step of my journey transparently. And I'm going to share when I hire my first person. I'm going to share how I interviewed for that person. I'm going to share, how we get customers. And everything's going to be super transparent and public. I'm going to tell you how much money I'm making, and I'm going to tell you, what are my challenges. And it's very scary. But what that approach does is that it builds an incredible connection between you and your audience, because they're like, oh my God, this guy's, he's so transparent, he's so value driven. So because of that, I think building public, it's gaining a lot of traction, and I see a lot of companies doing that. If you're looking for an example, there is a company called Copy.ai. You can find them on Twitter, and you're going to see how the founder is sharing everything. And it's fascinating to just observe, his journey. Another channel is engineering is marketing, which is not that popular in this part of the world. And that essentially boils down to you building tools or widgets that solve small problems for your customers, right? To get an example, let's again use the lead generation example. Let's say that I'm opening a lead generation agency in the Philippines, and I can build a calculator on my website that allows you to approximate how much it's going to charge you to work with me. You can add what are your targets in what markets, and there's going to be an algorithm that's going to churn an approximate rate of how much it's going to cost. So now that's very valuable, right? It's a very low friction calculator. You don't ask for a lot of information. You give it for free, but it provides value, and you collect emails that enables you later to monetize, and convert it to customers. So engineering is marketing is the process of building inexpensive tools that are very valuable for your audience, like calculators and stuff like that. I have written on the topic in the past, and I'm happy to share my article on how to do it, what are the best tools, and best practices in general. So I can share it at the end of this webinar. Another thing is newsletters. Newsletters are not a new thing. They definitely exist since the beginning of the internet. But I think how people do newsletters is broken. A lot of people, just try to push whatever news, whatever things are happening in their agency, and and it's boring and it's irrelevant, and I don't care. Like, I just don't care about all the small crap that's happening. What I do care about is valuable content that I can't find anywhere else. I care about you solving my problems. I care about you being very transparent about how you solve these problems, about how you help other customers. So I think there's been how to say, like, a spike in new newsletters that are value driven, where rather than sending a newsletter on behalf of the business owner says, what, I'm going to build an audience, and that audience is going to be my audience, not the business audience. It's going to be my audience. I'm going to attach it to my personal brand. It's going to be me, Viktor, from not the CEO of Greenhouse is going to be Viktor, right? And why is that helpful? It's because if you focus on having a lot of visibility on a social media like LinkedIn or Facebook, these platforms change their algorithm all the time. So you may do very well in the beginning, get a lot of followers, and suddenly all of your efforts may not work at all. That's because the platform changed the algorithm. Whereas when you have a list of emails that you send to and you provide value, the relationship is direct and no one can change the algorithm. So you're able to build a very valuable relationship directly with the client, and whatever it happens, even if LinkedIn goes down tomorrow, you have that list of emails. So I think that's very valuable. There is platforms like Substack that you can check. There is a few others as well. I think another one was called Review. But yeah, I think Substack is the best. In my experience, I write on Substack. I have a newsletter. I have hundreds of people that sign up, and I get customers, I get partners, and I get investors from that. Like people reach out all the time because they're impressed by the quality of what I share with them. So I definitely recommend starting a personal newsletter if you feel that you have what to share. And then last but not least, the reality of these markets is that everyone uses WhatsApp nowadays. Slack is getting bigger and bigger, so there is a lot of communities, a lot of groups dispersed across Facebook, WhatsApp, Slack, and if you're very careful, you can identify great communities that are full of potential targets, full of potential customers. Like we get a lot of inquiries from some of the communities I'm part of. I pay for a community called Revenue Collective. I pay $80 every month, but I'm a member of a community of thousands of people that are the best salespeople in the world. And many of these salespeople are ideal customers for me. So whenever they say, "Hey, I need help," and I'm like, "Hey, I can help," because we're part of the same community, what happens is that it's very easy for me to convert that client. Whereas, if we engage, at an event, or if we engage via email, it's going to take a while for us to build trust. But because we're part of the same community and we are, premium members where we pay, that eliminates a lot of trust issues. So I definitely recommend you to find other communities. There is another one called Demand Curve. I'm part of another one called On Deck, another one called Everything Marketplaces. They're all paid communities, and I pay a fair bit of money. But the value I get out of this is not just customers, but every time I have a question, I just raise it there. And, there's so many people that want to help me. So I definitely recommend exploring communities and, figuring out how you can activate that channel. Oh, yeah, I forgot about this slide. So these are, some places where you can find valuable content on what I discussed today. So, for example, Demand Curve is amazing about anything related to marketing and growth. Joint Pavilion is what I mentioned previously. They used to be called Revenue Collective. It's the world's biggest exec sales / BD / operation community. So definitely a lot of valuable content. Of course, on our blog, we share a lot of valuable stuff as well. We do our best list. This is my personal newsletter that I mentioned. I talk about a lot of tactical things, about opportunities in this part of the world, and other just whatever is on top of mind. And people seem to like it. I get very good feedback so far. Reforge is again a very good community for and content on the topic of marketing, product management, growth, and lately they started adding more. And then you have Lenny's newsletter, which I really like, which is another guy based out of the States that started the newsletter, and he tracks how a lot of very big businesses monetized, like how did they start monetizing? How did they get their first 5-10 customers? What kind of channels they did? What worked? What didn't work? Was it hard? Was it easy? So it maps out and gives you very tactical advice on what you can do. So these are just some of the examples that I would strongly recommend you to follow, because I think they can really help. And yeah, I guess, that's it, since, we don't have a whole day to go to. I know I don't want to give a whole degree in marketing, so I just try to summarize. But I hope that's valuable, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you so much, Viktor, for the very insightful sharing. So we do have a few questions that have come in. So probably we can start a discussion with this first one. So I think in your experience, which is the most effective channel across Southeast Asia to acquire new customer? And I think the second part to the question is, which are the channels that are most commonly used? So which is the most effective and which is the most commonly used?
If we look from the perspective of SMEs, right, smaller businesses, I think, people rely a lot on relationships because, I mean, Asia is a very relationship-driven market. People spend their life building valuable relationships and nurturing and investing in that and spending time with, their peers. So because of that, I would say that, 90% of our vendors in Asia rely on their relationships. So whoever they know, bringing customers. Whether that's most effective, I don't know. I mean, it definitely works for them. It's definitely inexpensive, but it's very hard to grow because, realistically, how many people can you be best buddy with? And how many companies can you nurture, right? So I think, especially as your business grows, it becomes a lot more harder. You can have some strategic, partnerships, like what we do with you guys, Philip, so that, we can tap on each other's audience. That's more at scale, but you need to tap into a tech company because tech companies have a lot larger scale typically than, a regular, as a smaller SME. So yeah, I definitely feel that what people use is relationship-driven acquisition, whereas, there is a lot that can be done for that to be improved. I definitely feel, there is a lot of room for experimentation, and then, on the basis of that, it's going to be always different depending on your business, your vertical, your unique skills, and all that.
Agree. I think to tap into your network or to tap into your industry's ecosystem, that may prove to be the most inexpensive and sometimes the most effective way, right? Sometimes less is more. So yeah, on that bit, I definitely agree with you. So one of our attendees actually also was intrigued with the Boosas framework that you shared earlier. And they wanted to know what is the reasonable budget to spend on the different channels, because I think earlier you mentioned that you can test and allocate budget on each of the 19 plus channels and to see which one really works for you. So the question is really, is there a number that is being tagged to it that is reasonable, or how should they go about doing this?
I think most channels you can test at about $500. $500 is a decent budget to test most of the channels, but that would exclude some channels. Depending what you do, SEM can be very expensive. So SEM in the travel sector, super, like if you're a small budget property and you want to run ads, very expensive, most probably, you're not going to learn shit with $500. You're just going to burn the money. So it really depends on, what vertical you are. But 500 for most, it would work. Facebook, pretty decent budget. Instagram, pretty decent budget. Content creation, pretty decent budget. You can hire people to help you write content. SEO optimization, you can hire someone to help you optimize your website, right? So 500, I think, is pretty decent. But LinkedIn, you go to LinkedIn and 500 is nothing. LinkedIn is so expensive. The ads on LinkedIn are incredibly expensive, right? So I would say for 80% of the channels, given that we are in Southeast Asia, 500 should be sufficient. If you have a lot of experience, maybe you can decrease that further. But I think that about 500 should be a good number.
Okay. And then how about for e-commerce sellers? So like which channel in terms of the push or the pull strategy would be more relevant for them? Personally, I think the push may be a little bit more relevant though, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Unless, it really depends what you sell, right? You sell something very cool, like a t-shirt, like, some clothes, some shoes, some phones, these are cool stuff people think about. People, may have a spontaneous decision to buy, but, think about when COVID hit the world and, suddenly we ran out of sanitizers. What happens is that everyone starts suddenly Googling for sanitizers, right? So, you can also pay attention to that and what people search for. I think it's a good mix between the two, but definitely most e-commerce platforms go heavy on social ads, like, Instagram, as you said, TikTok, the challenge is that, each of these platforms have different formats, different best practices, and, some are a lot harder than other. So it may take you a while. And nowadays there is software that you can use to manage multiple channels from one centralized tool, but it's still hard, right? But I agree that paid ads typically is the preferred choice for e-commerce.
Yeah. Okay. Can you share with us some examples of engineering as marketing? I think earlier you shared the example of building a calculator, for example. So in this case, like if our attendee is doing digital commerce, e-commerce seller, so what are the tools? What are some of the tools that will be applicable for them?
For e-commerce?
Yes.
Let's pick a, can you give me a vertical? Like, what are you selling? You're selling
probably just like t-shirts. Let's just use t-shirt as an example. Would that be relevant for them?
I think it's going to be hard to come up with something witty if you have a product that's very common, right? Or a product that's very simple to understand. I think the engineering as marketing makes a lot more sense as the product becomes complicated and there is a lot of things that you don't know. Like I give you an example. HubSpot, which is a CRM, right? What they did is that they built a tool that allows you to just paste your website. So you can leave your website domain there, and it's going to crawl your website very fast, and it's going to tell you how SEO optimized it is, right? For free. It just tells you, your mobile, your pages are very good on, mobile responsiveness. They're fast enough, or they're slow, or keywords are missing, or the JavaScript is broken, whatever, right? Very quickly for free, it gives you that. There is no cost to use the tool. It helps you, it delivers value, but to use it, you need to leave your email, right? So HubSpot captures that email, and HubSpot under their growth, whatever they call it, pro marketing, I don't know what their plan is called nowadays, but under one of their more expensive plans, they offer SEO tools, right? So for them, now they know that you have intent to improve your website, your SEO on the website, right? So now they can retarget you with relevant content and down the road convert you, right? So I think that's an example of how you can do it smart, but it works better when you have a more complicated product versus when you have a very simple product.
Yeah, I think if it is direct to understand, easy for consumer to digest, yeah, I think that may not be that relevant in this particular tool that we use. Okay, one of our attendees would like to know, hang on, in lead generations form, how do you suggest to phrase qualifying questions in relation to how big their business is? Like, how do we ask them about the size of the business, I guess?
I mean, it really depends. And is it really important to know how big the business is? If it's truly important, maybe a better way, like if you struggle to come up with a phrasing that works, perhaps an easier way is to just capture their website. And if you capture their website, then you can do it yourself, right? You can just go figure out, how big is that business, right? Because, even if you ask the question, the way the person going to respond might not be like, sometimes, I ask our leads, right? How like what's your ideal customer profile? And it's so funny to see how different people have completely different interpretation of the same question. It's just completely different. So I always need to clarify big time about what do I mean by this? What exactly do I mean? So no matter what, it's going to be challenging, and you need to A/B test, right? You need to start with one and then go with another one, and see over time what works best. But just be smart about it, and maybe if you can't figure out what question does, just get their URL, and then you can either use your CRM to create some automation that's gonna, like HubSpot, for example. We use HubSpot. It can actually track that and can identify how big it is. It also connects with the Sales Navigator on LinkedIn, which provides further information into the business, right? So I don't need to necessarily collect that information because, automatically I'm going to have it in my CRM.
Okay. One of the attendees asked, like, as a virtual assistant agency in Asia, which channel do you think is best for acquiring new clients in the Western countries?
As a virtual assistant agency, what channel do you think is best for finding clients in Western countries? I mean, a number of channels can work. You can go to channel partners like, Upwork, right? Upwork is a channel for you. right? So discovering all the platforms like that, there is, GetCraft, Upwork, Fiverr, so these are, you can call them channel partners, you can call them whatever you want, right? So that's one channel that people definitely go there with the intent for searching someone like you. So that's a good place to start. Then you need to optimize your profile so that you're better than the rest of the agency that are there. If you want to stand out, you need to provide. Then if you want to really stand out and you have a more defensible channel where you don't compete directly with other people, you need to provide a lot of content. You need to go really deep in explaining via blogs and videos and podcasts, why your virtual assistant agency is the best. How do you hire people? What are the processes that you use? What are the mistakes companies do? Share about what are the costs of hiring these agencies. Be as transparent as you can. Just share everything that you know. Optimize that content so it's discoverable on Google. And I think that's a lot more defensible and compounds in the long run. So I think that could be one way to do it, right? You can create referral programs where every time a client gets you, they get a discount if they immediately refer you to another client, right? So you can do a million different things. I think it's not that it's easy. Nothing is easy in business. Everything is hard, but I just think there is a lot of options that you can do.
Yeah, I guess as much there isn't really one formula to target the other side of the world as compared to this side of the world, right? So what works here may work elsewhere as well. So yeah. Okay. There is a question on newsletter. So what is the frequency of a newsletter release that would make it effective? Is it weekly? Is it monthly?
I think what you're asking the wrong question. The person asking. You shouldn't be thinking about how frequently to do it. You should be thinking, where do you have something valuable to say? If you don't have something valuable to say that truly delivers value, don't release it. People don't want to read mediocre work. There is plenty of mediocre articles and newsletters out there. If you have something that excites you, and if you when you write something and you share it with someone, and that person says, "I learned so much out of that," this is the kind of experience you want to provide for your readers. So share whenever you have something valuable to share. If you don't have something valuable to share, don't share. And don't try to force yourself a particular cadence of writing. No one's going to be anticipating your newsletter every second Tuesday. People forget, people don't care. It's good in the beginning to have some kind of vague cadence, like bi-weekly or monthly, just so that you keep yourself accountable. But if you don't have what to share, don't share. That's my answer, because that it's a lot more important what you write versus how frequently you write.
I agree totally. I think as a consumer ourselves, I don't think we would really appreciate a newsletter on a monthly basis just for the sake of receiving it every month, right? So most often than not, it goes into our junk mail. So yeah, only when you find something valuable to share. And sometimes this will become a bit more cherished whenever people receive your content. They would feel that it's special only when you have something important or something unique to share. Kind of like this question though. The next question is, Victor, you mentioned earlier that relationship-driven acquisition is one of the most effective way in getting clients for business. So can you give some tips on how to further nurture these relationships, given that your clients are all scattered across Southeast Asia or around the world, and the only interaction that you're going to have with them would be online?
Yeah. So I would assume that, these people have something in common because they're working with you, right? Otherwise, there would be completely different people that wouldn't need your service. If they have something in common, you can build a community around yourself. So you can put them in a group and you can do everything you can to deliver value to that group. Just, start sharing articles, start answering questions. Whenever someone has a question, just jump on it and answer it and do everything you can, break your back to help that person. Right. And, as you start doing this again and again and again, you're going to build a very valuable community, right? Because people are going to be going there with questions and going to be getting a lot of value out of it. So over time, rather than, you needing to go one by one and spend, 1 hour, 2 hours having beers or, whatever with someone somewhere else, which is very hard. It's not effective unless it's your biggest client. But then, of course, to spend some time with them. But if it's some average client, perhaps it's a lot better to build a community around your business. And in that sense, nurture that community, provide a lot of value. And over time, you would see that they would respect you so much, they would trust you that much that they would start telling people, right? So they would become ambassadors of your brand. But don't try to position the community around your business. Position the community around the problem that you're solving, right? I think that's a lot better, because otherwise it seems very salesy, right? Like if it's your business, I'll be like, do I want to be like, unless you're Apple that has a massive brand, I don't know if I want to join some community of some random brand from around the world.
Yep. Addressing the task at hand, I think we have transcended beyond the conventional relationship building of meeting up somebody over coffee, just having that informal kind of rapport building. So I guess as much in the online world that we're living in right now, I guess addressing the task at hand, I think really addressing pain points, that would be one way to really nurture a business relationship. Okay, we have time for 2 more questions. So what are some of the most common mistakes that your vendors may do when they are doing marketing, or common mistakes that businesses will come across when doing marketing?
Super salesy. Every interaction with the client is like, buy now, book a meeting now, right? It's just, maybe I don't want right now, maybe I don't need right now, like, so every interaction that they have so salesy that I'm like, I don't want to get these emails, I don't want to open these emails. They don't ask me if I want to be on their email list, and they send, like, our service providers do it all the time with me. I never ask to be on their mailing lists, and they keep on spamming me, and I keep on blocking them, like, because I don't need that, right? It's very salesy, very aggressive approach. If I don't need your help, I don't need your help. As simple as that, right? So I think that's the number one challenge that I face, right? In our case, when I send our newsletter, I have automated in our CRM. If someone, like, I make it very clear in the newsletter, if you don't want to read this, click here, and I'm not going to bother you ever again, right? And I start with this because I don't want to spam people. I don't want to deliver things that are not relevant. So, and then I have automated that whoever unsubscribes, they would never again receive any email from us, right? Because I just want to respect people, and I want to provide value, and I don't want them to just go and to upset them, right? There is a very good methodology framework from Gary Vee. If Gary Vee is a popular influencer, he called it jab right hook, where a jab is like when in boxing, when you just give light punches, right? And it's the same in marketing. You give, like, every time you give a jab is a light, valuable content. You give some value, give some value, right? So you do a lot of jabs, and then once in a while you do a right hook, which is a salesy approach, but you have given so much value that the right hook doesn't feel like a right hook, right? And I think that's a lot better approach. Provide a lot of value over a long period of time, and then you have earned the right to sell. But I think most vendors do those right hooks all the time, no jabs, and and I feel like I'm too much beaten from these guys. I don't want to read anything anymore.
But would that also mean the gestation period would be very long? Like I first need to nurture this relationship for, say, a period of 3 months before I can start to potentially pitch something to them that is of a value to me. So would that then be a bit too long, or do you think that you should really try to see which approach works?
If I need your help, I'll let you know. Yeah. No matter how you approach me, right? If I really need you, I find a way to call you. I'll search for your email. Like, I see it. We do our best at Greenhouse to hide our emails because we want the platform to handle everything. So we have made it almost like quite hard to find how to contact us via email. People all the time find my email. If you really want to find my email, you're going to find my email. Like, if you really need my help, no matter how I approach you, you're gonna do it, right? So from that perspective, I think, you're not missing on anything. And even if you miss, in the big picture, it's insignificant to the amount of value that you have created and the reputation that you bring.
Got it. Okay, so we have time for one last question. What kind of service providers can Greenhouse support with demand generation?
So essentially, we work with 2 verticals. One vertical is corporate service providers, so professional services firms, ComSecs, as some people call them. It depends on the market. But so that's one. All the corporate service providers that offer payroll, accounting, taxes, company information. It's a long range of services. Legal services fall into that bracket as well, but legal services are sometimes not allowed to advertise. So because of that, not in every market we work with Lego companies. And on the other side, business development vendors. So companies that help you with appointment setting, lead generation, outsource sales team. So companies that help you get first deals in new markets, so get first strategic partners in new markets. So yeah, these are the two: corporate services and business development vendors. That's what we're focused on, and we do our best to provide as much value as we can to all these guys.
Okay. Thank you so much, Victor. I think before we end the session, can I trouble Jen? Yes, we would like to thank our attendees for taking the time off to really learn from Victor. So as a token of our appreciation, we have 2 QR codes for you. So if you do choose to sign up with the Payoneer account, you can scan the QR code. You will get a $50 sign up bonus. And with Greenhouse, you will get a 30 to 60 minutes complimentary go-to-market consultation. So Greenhouse will advise any company planning to expand across Southeast Asia. So at the end, after the session, we will be sending out the slides that Victor has shared earlier. We will be also sending you the link to this particular recording so that you can rewatch it or share it with your friends and your employees. And just to wrap this up, once again, thank you so much, Victor, for taking the time off to share the learnings and your experiences with us. Personally, I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our attendees and our viewers watching the YouTube replay would benefit a lot from this as well. So we hope to catch you again next time. Meanwhile, stay safe, and yeah, till the next webinar. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for organizing. Thank you.